Welcome along then to the latest episode of Netball Unlocked, our series where we get under the skin of netball and those involved. Unfortunately, Chloe's been dragged away for an Olympics assignment, so it means I've got the wonderful Victoria Burgess, coach of the two-time defending champions, with me. Vic, thank you immensely for giving up your time. And firstly, how are you? How are the first weeks of the season?
Yeah, good, thanks. I will correct you. I don't know if I got it, but we are 3 times.
Of course, I kind of two-time defending.
Yeah, I think good. Obviously, kind of getting into the flow of things, and very much submerged into the NSL season. Every season's different, so like lots of different challenges. Really good things that we need to kind of work on and develop as we get through the season, and lots of learnings as we go through each game. So yeah, we've kind of kicked off and everything's rolling.
It's obviously a bigger season than usual, and we'll probably get into some of the nuts and bolts of sort of 2.0 as we talk, but sort of big picture takeaways from the first part of the season, Vic. We've had arenas, we've had super shots, lots of kind of different stuff. What's been your take on things?
Yeah, I think new rules in there. Super shots interesting. I think teams are trying to kind of navigate their way through it. It seems like across our league, a lot of teams are ultimately going for super shots in that super shot time. The kind of stat percentage on our super shots across the league seems quite high, which is reflective of like the amount of volume that I think average most teams are taking around 15 super shots per game, which is probably relatively high when you compare it to like SSN or previous years do across SSN. So yeah, I think really interesting as a coach, and kind of being kind of submerged in that. Lots of learnings through it, like how we can utilize the super shot effectively. We've got really kind of strong shooters who are really confident in that space. And and them kind of using that in the right way at the right time. Obviously there's lots that to consider around when we take that and when we don't, around the game smarts of how we utilize it, but also defensively, how we can kind of isolate shooters out of the super shot area, and promote the ball into spaces which we wouldn't usually promote them into. So it is interesting. I think it is interesting across the league how people are using it. But as well, we're probably just a third of the way through, and it's interesting to see what teams are doing with it.
That evolution of the tactical side of it is actually something Chloe and I were chatting about in the episode today. How do you think it might transpire? Because we also had Kerry Ormond on, we've had Lindsay Keeble on, so we haven't actually had, apart from El Murray, like a shooters kind of version of it about how to deal with it. For me, as a fan, I quite like that there is now a little bit of nuance. I'm still undecided on whether it should be worth 2 points, obviously, but I like the nuance and the difference it creates.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it definitely can add pressure to the game, even when you are, if you are a 10 up, that there is a chance that an opposition who are shooting well in the super shot can turn that around relatively quickly, from if they do utilize the super shot, and defensively if you haven't kind of got a plan for that in that moment, or if your plan's not quite working and having to adjust to it. So it can be tricky, and I think teams are kind of learning how they can use it well, but also in those key moments, like how they can stop the super shot under pressure. And as I said, it's lots of learning as we go through it.
As far as the league itself is concerned, Vic's on a big journey. We're not quite sure how long it'll take us to get there and things like that. How did you guys find the process to sort of become a franchise? We've spoken to Sam and Karen Gregg, who are obviously very different franchises. You've got the kind of university model. So how was it different for you guys?
Yeah, I think, I did listen to Greggy's interview, and I think probably along the similar lines of like it felt like a really tough time going through it. as a coach, probably not knowing if you've got a job the next season, but also like for the players as well, in particular, through that time for them, like they were having to kind of focus on a season, but also in the back of the mind, they were thinking like, what does the future hold for them in their franchise? So I think the way it was done was probably kind of added pressure in that process, but also that there were probably a few unknowns going into those kind of franchise bids as to what we were exactly bidding for. I think information wasn't that clear at the time, but however, we're in it now and kind of finding our way through it. Ultimately, I completely back the idea of it going professional over a period of time. I don't know if it's to kind of the jump we've done straight away, 2 feet into big arenas and things. I love the spectacle of it. It's just whether we can kind of fill those arenas that quickly. But also, going into like the player focus side of things, like they, we're squads of 10, and the impact on the players from a loading perspective, it can be quite tricky, and getting the kind of training environment right as well can be, as in not environment, as in like the training loading as well can be quite tricky as well with the next gen league too. So I think that definitely we need to look at like how it's gone this year and how it's going this year, review it, and like look at how we can make improvements in that space with either larger squads or trainer partners, or something that's going to kind of help that environment and help potentially reduce the amount of injuries that we've seen across the first part of this season. So yeah, it's definitely, the changes have definitely had an impact, and definitely I think we need to review where it's at and like what has been the benefit of those changes and what's not been beneficial at all.
I think it's such a difficult place because you have to start somewhere, right? It's almost like, do we do too much? Do we do too little? Do we do a bit of everything? And I think that's what we're kind of keen to hear from you guys. I was going to say this question to the end, but it's kind of cropped up now. But where would you like to see Network maybe 2 or 3 years, Vic? Because I think the big picture stuff is great, but actually, what sort of achievable steps in the next sort of 2 or 3 seasons, I think is a pretty legitimate question to ask, like as we embark on the process.
Yeah, I think we've got to nail down kind of the squad sizes and kind of put that at the forefront of that for the performance. We want to have every team being able to perform week in, week out. And if teams are kind of depleted because of injury or the impact of international season kind of spilling into the franchise or domestic season, that can certainly have an impact on the week in, week out performance from a franchise perspective. I think once we've got that right, I think that's when it's we can push on into the kind of spectator side of things, getting more people at games, having like real consistency in streaming and broadcasting for our sport. And I appreciate it's going to take a bit of time to get it all right, but actually I think those kind of small stepping stones of like nailing the performance side of it down will actually encourage more people to want to watch it, people having kind of stronger squads to kind of fall back on should anything should anything happen to any of the the players in there. I think would definitely make an impact.
Reading between the lines, were you more in favour of maybe broadening your pool out, Vic? Is that something?
I think we definitely, I think so. I think I feel like most people are feeling the impact of squads of 10, not just like from a day, like a game day perspective, more from like everything around that. The training environment, and having people ready to step up into that should they need to. I also think moving forward, professionalisation of the league, but also like being able to have athletes in, and paid more, so that they don't have to have these kind of day jobs that most of them, or a good probably chunk of them, currently do have. will give them more time to kind of train during the day, get more recovery, more rest, more tailored kind of training, which would only help them kind of in the long run and building up to being more professional athletes day in, day out.
What about the franchise as a whole? I think when I first got involved in netball, which is probably about 10, 12 years ago now, like there was kind of a big skew towards the university side of things. What advantage, maybe disadvantage, does that give kind of you guys, Vic, and how do you work within that framework?
Yeah, I think I've been at Loughborough University for I think it's about 6 years now, in kind of two different roles. One's the pathway head coach, and then moving into director of netball. I think the support at the university is amazing. I think it's the facilities, the access to everything the athlete needs is just completely outstanding, and athletes come into the environment and they submerge themselves 2 feet in. They can have everything that they need to be the best that they can be kind of handed to them on a plate. I mean, they have to put the work in, obviously,
Yeah.
but should they, those kind of 1%ers, like actually, the access to the courts, the access to power base, the clinic, we've got a lot of opportunity and support here. And I think that's down to the Loughborough University like really buying into the fact that they fully back Loughborough Lightning, and want them to be kind of the best performing team. So kind of forever thankful for that. I suppose that the difference is it is the university, and there are limitations to what they can do. I think the positive thing is that they'll back it financially. They wouldn't have put a bid in if they didn't, if they weren't committed to it, which is really positive. But there are kind of limitations sometimes to sponsorships, things like that, some kind of lines to kind of, or hoops to jump through. But ultimately, like it's down to us to kind of work through that, what works for us. But yeah, completely thankful for their full support all the time. And like they certainly are continuing to back us and see the value of having kind of Loughborough Lightning as a franchise linked with them.
Helps to be champions as well, Vic, right?
It does, yes. I mean,
um,
to be fair, they've backed it for a very long time,
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
there was 20. This will be the 20th year that they've done that, and that it hasn't always been like this. It's been a process to get to this point. So that they are kind of in with 2 feet.
I think probably a question, and we maybe don't know the answer to this, is how that evolves. And you sort of alluded to it there. If the league gets bigger, if players are paid more money, if they don't have to go to school or do a job or everything else that goes with it, how does kind of the university kind of model, which has been such a staple of kind of Super League netball, does that have a future in it? I suppose is the really big picture question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think every I think with Loughborough University, like we don't want to stand still, and
Yeah.
part of that is looking at how we can grow sports in different ways. And I'm on the netball side of things. It's not just netball at the university that they're investing in. There's lots of other sports in that space, so you can see they're committed to everybody getting better every day. The sports developing, men's, women's sports, like lots of variety. And I think I think I think it can continue to grow in that space. It's just how we get there is the key point of navigation. And it's not just me sat,
Yeah.
with our team. There's a whole team of strategic people who will set the tone of where we want to get to, how we're going to get there, and like what my role looks like in that,
Yeah.
and those around me, what their roles look like in that too. So yeah, I think it can definitely grow in that space because we just don't want to stand still.
Yeah, and I think as that like sort of home of elite performance for kind of sort of young people, if you like, I do think it's going to be really interesting to see how that transpires. Because I'm with you, I absolutely think it has a place, and it would be so interesting to see how that evolves. How have you taken to rivals down the road now as well? We've got Forest. It was a great occasion for the
Yeah,
neutral.
yeah,
How has that been for you guys?
yeah. I mean, it was always going to turn into a local derby, and actually, like local derbies are always a really good spectacle for the spectators. I think we've had it previously when Wasps were pretty close
Yeah.
to us. They were our kind of local derby, and it was always a very good game against Wasps, like competitive, all of that, and it had the emotion. And it's similar with Forest. We played them 2 weeks ago, and I think for us, um, the game itself, as you said, for the spectator, was a really good game to watch. And it's quite hard to say that when you're on the losing side of it because it doesn't feel like that. But ultimately, like performance-wise, we were obviously kind of came away disappointed with it, and we, straight away kind of were like, we'll get them, when we play them again. But yeah, I think having those local kind of derbies are pretty interesting, and it does add some really good kind of emotion around it for the competitiveness for the sport. So kind of taking it as a real positive having those teams close by.
I think that sort of stuff is really important. If you kind of look at how other sports evolve, not just female sport, but male sport as well, it's that ability to sort of create narratives and kind
Yeah,
of talking points and head to heads and battles. We talk about kind of arenas and super shots and big picture, but actually you want good quality kind of needle sometimes.
yeah, games, yeah.
um, I was just in terms of kind of where you guys are now as a team. You are there to be shot at. I think it's fair to say, like it's in any sport. If you're the champions, not least if you've kind of gone back to back, as we've mentioned, and as you very correctly pointed out, got three lightning strikes on your thing. How do you how did you approach the off season? I suppose, Vic, because we knew it was going to be difficult as new franchises.
Mhm.
I could imagine, wanted to keep some core, but wanted to develop the team. How did you go about that process?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you just said it there. Like, we looked at kind of what team we've got and want to keep some kind of core players across that 10. I think for us, like, I was really pleased with our recruitment window and the people that we brought in. Um, and I think heading into pre-season, like, I think for us, yes, we know that we are back-to-back champions, and there's no hiding away from that. It's also a real privilege to be in that position because we've put ourselves there, and that's the reason we go out there and train and work hard day in day out. So it's a real privilege to be in this position. And I suppose it's just that's one of our challenges is right is kind of dealing with pressure, which I think the girls do handle pretty well. They know that they're in a privileged position, but other things that we do is kind of just we know what our aims are for the season. Like we sit down at the start of the season, go this, we believe this is a championship winning squad. This is what it's going to take to get there. This is what we expect of you. That you can expect this from us, and ultimately, each season is a little bit of a roller coaster, but it takes, hard work, grit, and determination to get there, and players wanting to be better every day, and take an opportunity, as I said before, at Loughborough with those like 1%ers, like everything that they're doing on the court, but also the importance of like everything that they're doing off the court. Um, Makes a huge difference to kind of where we get to. So yeah, that we've spoken about winning, we've spoken about our expectations, and that the girls are all on board with it, and now it's that hard work of all of the hard work we need to put into it to actually get there.
Before we get into those you have got, how hard to see Mary doing her stuff down in Suncorp. It's hard not to also be very, very pleased and impressed and proud as well.
I honestly like I'm so proud of her over in SSN. I think she was ready for it. I'm really pleased that she kind of took that leap to head out there and take her family across too. And yeah, it's great to see her starting really strong in SSN, and and building confidence each time she's out there. So yeah, really proud of her. And yeah, try to kind of connect in with her every now and then to let her know that she's doing
Oh,
a
great.
good job. But no, for us, like huge loss for us from a kind of shooter perspective. But ultimately, she was ready to go out there, so we will always support that and be like ultimately proud of what she's doing out there.
How much of a challenge is that? Obviously, because as much as we talk about the journey we have here in the UK, SSN is such a fabulous product. It's so established and kind of further down the road. Like the balance that you strike as a coach and as a director of netball in understanding when the opportunity might be right for players to go and challenge themselves in a different environment. How do you deal with that? I suppose maybe on a human level as well.
Yeah, I think it's about having that connection with the players and understanding of like what their wants are. So, we sat down with Mary a couple of times at certain points over the last, 5 years, that because we had her for 5 years. Um, and she was quite open with where she wanted to be in the future, and we would kind of advise her on like, her readiness to be, to go out there. And ultimately she was doing a degree as well. So we were like,
Yeah.
let's get you through your degree, keep you focused, and in that time we'll try and get you as prepared as possible for what you might expect to see out in SSN, and hopefully her going into that league feeling like she's performing to the right standard that she needs to be, and confident with that, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
those conversations in the athlete one-to-ones are always really open, and we would always want to make sure that we prepare athletes as much as possible if that is in their plans to go across to SSN.
Your approach to kind of replacing Mary, I suppose, was always going to be interesting. You brought in two kind of different types of players and maybe have reshaped the circle a little bit. Was that a deliberate plan?
Yeah, I think so. I think to bring in some experience from a shooter perspective with Sammy. Sammy's been out in SSN for I think it was 8 years. So from her, like she knows the level that she needs to be playing at. She knows how to play through the super shot. Her confidence on the shot is great. And then for us, it was just about it's about kind of building those connections with the new players around her. Similar like from Berry. I've worked with Berry previously at like England youth level. I was a under 17 head coach.
Right.
So I know her competitiveness, her drive to want to be better every day. She ultimately wants to be the best goal attack out there, and to have somebody so focused in that is really kind of, for me is great as a coach, because they give everything in every session, and will constantly have that dialogue with you as to, where they can improve and get better. So I think with this shooting circle, I've got some real good versatility there. And kind of in the approach of having a look at like what we wanted and needed. That's that we were really like netball focused on, what we can get out of that shooting circle. And then defensively, bringing in Shadeen, like some like really good experience wise from South African international. I think she's been with Thunder for 3 years. I think her ability to win ball naturally is awesome. Her work rate is unbelievable, and her openness to learn and want to try like new and different things is outstanding. So she's been a real cool addition to our group, and just brings so much energy too. Like she's such a great person. And then Geordie Gibson too. I think Geordie can be a little bit of like a silent assassin at times. Like, she looks like she's not in the right position to take a ball, and then absolutely goes from like 0 to 100 mile an hour to win ball outside the circle. And I love that about her. Really good energy as well. And actually style of play, both Shadeen and Geordie can really switch it up. So like what they can play a real solid kind of 1v1, and kind of mark their goal attack or goal shooter out of the game. But also like in a unit, they're really good at kind of sitting in space, reading the game, like setting up into structures, and kind of running things hard and then recovering quickly. So I've seen just loads of value in adding those two to our circle, which I think have made a really positive impact to our squad.
You've spoken about the new recruits, Vic. It feels to me that there's, I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but a conscious effort to keep that core in the middle that has been such a big part of what you do. Nat, Hannah, and Beth, they're so experienced. They've been there, seen it, and done it. So, again, was that a big part? Because we haven't seen that change too much in the early weeks of the season either.
Yeah, and I think all three of them loads of experience, right? And I think for me the biggest thing about those guys is like work rate and kind of the level that they expect of themselves and each other. Uh, that just brings everybody up into that training environment and on the court. I think you said Beth, Han, Nat, Bella does add
Yeah.
some real energy into that attacking end as well. And I think that collectively that unit was with us last season, and it's great to kind of in last season she built some really good connections. So it's really good to see that come into fruition in training environment, but also like across pre-season, seeing a lot of that from that unit too. And yeah, I think from the middies perspective, like they're connected and they understand each other. And we've just been working on how we can connect the middies to the ends across pre-season and implement that connection into games week in, week out.
You've mentioned it a few times in there, and it's part of sort of some of the bigger picture questions we ask all the coaches. You talk about a culture, and it sounds to me like those three girls are very crucial to kind of what you do there. So, how difficult when you bring sort of like new people, and you mentioned Shadeen's energy and Sammy's experience. So, how much of a balance is there when you're kind of creating a culture to kind of think about the people that you're bringing in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those conversations, they happen in recruitment, right? In what I, as a coach, expect of players, what our culture has, built to, and what it looks like, and and in those conversations, check in to see whether that aligns with their own values. So I think from the start, in recruitment, you get a good vibe as to whether that's going to be a good fit or not. And then when they're in the environment, it's also, because there are changes to personnel, players. I think it's always important for those people to have a voice too. So when they come into the start of pre-season, we do a lot around like who we are as a team, how we want to go about winning this, and what their expectations are. So they're involved in that, which ultimately makes them accountable to that, and we can keep them accountable to that. So I think it's, yeah, as I said, very much kind of sussing out who they are at the start, but also bringing them into that conversation around our culture. And because some of these players have been in lots of different teams, and actually they might bring something that we've not thought about,
Mm-hmm.
or add a lot of value to what we've already got, which is what we've seen. So I think it's hugely important to bring them into it, and get their kind of side of things too, and where they can add value and add to the culture, and not just have to like align to it. How can they add to that culture?
And what about you as a coach as well, Vic? How do you keep kind of evolving? We're always keen to kind of get under the skin, as we mentioned at the top, of kind of coaching journeys and kind
Yeah.
of how you got into the sport originally. You're kind of someone who feels dyed in the wool netball. Is that very much the case?
I How did I get into netball? So my cousin, Melissa, shout out. She is a couple of years older than me, and started playing netball for our local club, Oaksway, up in Hartlepool. And I pretty much probably just wanted to be like her. So started playing netball around the age of 7 for Oaksway. Played netball, loved every aspect of it, loved the friends I made. And I think I just love the competitiveness, of the fact that it's like the ultimate team game, and that it's not just one person that can do this. You've got to work together as a team. So I think my next steps was, develop through youth pathway, did some England youth as a player. And then when I went to university, after like World Youth Cup, I'm going to say in 2005, but it's going to make me feel very old. I went to university and did sports development and coaching. Played for Team Northumbria at the time, and then that's where my kind of coaching journey started. Started doing some coaching in county environments, in club environments, and then just built a little bit of like a a good understanding of the game, but also was really enjoying working with the pathway athletes and the youngsters that were coming through, and seeing their journey from like being 12 to 17, 18, and then getting their own opportunities to go on into international youth teams. Like really enjoyed that journey. And I think it was 2011 that I got I think it was called regional excel coach at the time. Greggy was actually one of the coaches who was an excel coach at the time too, so spent a lot of time connected in with her too. And then I moved to Loughborough University as a pathway coach in 2018. Did a couple of seasons as an assistant coach and a pathway coach. And then I think it was 20 October, oh no, 2022 that I took over as head coach and director of netball at Loughborough University, and kind of haven't really looked back since. Like I feel like every day is a learning, like every day is a school day, because every season is completely different. There'll be completely different challenges that you face across every season, whether you're winning, losing, whatever that looks like. And I think from my perspective, like I do like learning, and I think at times like you can learn from your own decisions, you can learn from the coaches around you, you can learn from the people that you're working with, the athletes. Like I do love it. I love that when you have conversations with athletes and you come up with something together, is one of my favorite things. Yeah, so that's kind of my coaching journey, a whistle stop tour. But yeah, I think do love it, and yeah, it's not without its challenges at times, but that's part of it, right?
Do you enjoy being a coach more than you enjoy playing? I think that's always an interesting question.
Uh, I'd say so. I think I do enjoy being a coach more than playing. I mean, I haven't played since 2017, I think. So
Right.
I probably got to say that I enjoy coaching more. But yeah, I do love the coaching side of things, because it's the fun stuff. It's problem solving together. It's being creative when you need to. It's how do you build sessions under pressure? Like all of those kind of small intricate things that yeah, are challenging but really fun to explore.
We we asked actually, this is Chloe's question, and I'm going to steal it from her because it's excellent. She's asked everyone so far, do you consider yourself more of a tactician or more of a technician when it comes to coaching? Where do you stand
Ooh.
on that?
I'd probably say, I don't know actually. I'd say probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
In um yeah, I think games you've got to be a tactician, right?
Mm.
And I think there's definitely areas of my game that I can improve in that. And I think as we're going through new rules and all of that, like
Yeah.
there's lots of learning to be had there. So I think games definitely like tactician focus, like how can we break them down? What are we doing well? Can we switch things up to, make them have to make different decisions? But I think definitely a technician when it comes to getting to where we need to be, from like a athlete development perspective, and looking at how we can help athletes be the very best that they can be. That was
Um,
probably a bit of a on the fence answer, but I'm
it
going to
was
go
a
with
little
it.
bit, but it's understandable. I think sometimes the question is interesting for me because it's almost like, where do you like to get your hands dirty? What's the best part
Mm,
of it? Lauren Palmer, when actually we spoke to her last week, she just couldn't get enough of the tactical side. So like, I get that, and you've alluded to that all the way through this chat. It's almost
Yeah.
like being able to problem solve or work with
Yeah.
athletes to get the best part out of it. But no, but then equally, kind of everyone has said you've got to be able to nail your basics. If you can't throw and catch,
Absolutely, yeah. You're not going to be able to do anything if you can't
yeah,
throw a catch.
yeah, exactly. Thinking about the team as obviously the champions, either of any of the titles in particular kind of stand out to you as favourites? That feels like a silly question, but three titles you've been involved in.
I mean, every single one is just so special and like so meaningful because the journey is always a little bit different. I'd say, you know, my first one, um, what year was that? 2023?
2023, yeah.
Yeah, 2023. I think for me that was special just because we had like a lot of emotion and a lot of things that had happened through our season with the athletes. It's no secret, like Nat's partner,
Yeah,
Katie, was going through kind of that cancer fight and diagnosis, and we'd had other things that had happened across the squad, and ultimately, like everybody was kind of fighting for each other in that space, and that friend, for me, felt connected and really
mm,
kind of focused, and it was special because of the reasons it was
yeah,
special, if that makes sense. But as I said, like each season's different, and they all mean like the absolute world, to get to lift that trophy at the end of the season. It's like months, if not, years worth of work that, you've been consistently just focused that whole time. And it's, it's an amazing feeling to lift that trophy each time you do it. And that's why, we're so focused to wanting to do it again, because,
mm,
you don't want to do all that hard work and not have that at the end of it, or you'll feel disappointed or we'll feel disappointed if we don't. So, yeah, definitely love them all, but actually, yeah, I think the 2023 season was a special one.
yeah. And what about you? Like stepping up from assistant to head coach as well. How was that as a challenge? We spoke about your netball kind of
Yeah.
journey. Did you feel like you were ready for it? Was it it obviously came about because of Sarah, but
Mm.
you've obviously gone and proven yourself with a couple of titles. So
Yeah, I think it's always difficult I think that when you're an assistant coach, there's times, and I'm I'm speaking for myself, but I think there's times where you think, oh, am I ready for this? Am I not? And I probably went into it thinking, oh, questioning myself a little bit, but actually, the girls were brilliant and really responsive. It helped that I'd been in that environment
yeah,
for 2 seasons as an assistant coach, so I'd already built connections in there. So they were really responsive, and yeah, I think sometimes it can be difficult as a coach, because there's times where you come out of sessions thinking that was great, like, I did a really good job then, and there's times where you think it's going to go well, and you come out and think, God, that was absolutely horrific, like I need to really look at what I'm doing again. And I think that's part of being a coach, right? Like it's part of the coaching journey, like being open to learning and like reviewing what we're doing, like each week, each session, each game, to be better on the other end of that. So yeah, I think I think for me there was definitely a little bit of like self-doubt, but getting into it and throwing myself into it, um, it was great. And I suppose it's like, if there's a message, like if you get an opportunity, take it,
yeah.
because you never know what's going to happen.
Um, you obviously got a very strong setup around you, and you've been part of a very strong setup. Can you? First question on this is why does Lauren have the AirPods? We've seen it from the camera sides, but it does feel like a bigger part of tactical evolution in netball as well.
Yeah. So Lauren has the AirPods. She's basically connected up to the balcony to our
Yeah,
PA. So what we'll do is there'll be key messages that are transferred down to the court side. So
yeah,
whether it be like things that they see from an aerial point of view, we'll
mhm,
also have a coach up there with them as well, to channel through any information. And also just if anything goes wrong on the, we get feedback through the stats. So if anything stats wise hasn't quite came through, we can get that direct back to Matt, who's our stats guy and basically PA, sorry, and we can act on that quickly. We'll also look at how we can. There might be key moments in the game where we want to show the players some specific setups or show them what we're doing well or where there's some gaps to pick up on, so we can basically communicate that and say, can we clip this, and then that they can get those clips either sent down to us on the bench or join us in the changing room, and we can share that across. So it's just another line of communication to give the girls as much information as possible that is like real, real stats, real footage. So it's another kind of connection point of being on our game on game day.
It does also feel like we've seen it on a few benches now, like with iPads right in front of them and different kind of responsibilities and sort of really kind of strong coaching staff. As much as we talk about the whole journey to professionalisation, it feels like that coaching and tactical side of things is moving in that direction and has. I suppose you've mentioned 1%ers a few times, and these things can be even bigger than 1%ers.
100%. Like it's, just finding new ways to give feedback or finding new ways to assess the game in different ways, I think is just really important. And trying those out to see actually what works and what doesn't. And, it might be that something I think is valuable. The girls might not, or, the players might not find that valuable, or vice versa. They might find something that's like, helpful to them that I think, oh, that's not really that helpful to me. So I think just trying new things out, I think is just really important for the evolution of, from coach development perspective as well. Like, how can we utilize great people with like, somebody who has like a different point of view from mine to see something a little bit different. I think that could be really impactful.
How much do the players have impact, maybe not on the day, but sort of in the build-up to the week? Because we've alluded to sort of really experienced players, international players. How much of a part do they play in that kind of involvement?
100%. I think, we have a weekly leadership catch-up where we have a chat around like what we feel would be helpful in the training week, where we think we'll have like a chat about the opposition. So lots of conversations are had in the kind of preparation of like what the training week could look like and where we want to target some specifics. And some of that might be from like fixing up from the previous game or like just fine tuning some things. But also, we utilize our PA sessions, I think, really well in that, we'll pick out some clips to have a look through, we'll talk through them, and it's not just directed at like from myself or Lauren or Liv or, Josie, whoever's in there, to actually ask some questions as well as, this is what I think, what do you think? So actually getting their opinion, because they're the girls that are out there, right? And they need to connect to it and understand it. So I think it's really important to kind of everybody buy into those conversations so that we can get better.
Are there one or two key ingredients to being champions that you think? Is there a couple of little? I'm sure you're not going to share the secrets, but are there a couple of things that you kind of feel are sort of non-tangible and non-negotiables, or the real tangible stuff?
I think it's personnel change like year after year, and I think it's the setting the expectations is really clear. The players, the staff, all being a part of those, and then everybody buying in. So like that all-in culture, everybody buying into that one goal of of being a champion and actually understanding what it's going to take to get there. Because it's not an easy ride, and you sometimes have to make decisions that you don't want to make, in that you've got I don't know, family that you need to see, but ultimately you need to go do a recovery session, or you've got to put yourself in the best position possible to be as ready for the next training session, to be ready for the next game. So I think it very much is like an all-in culture of like, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to work really hard to get there, and everybody's got to have to be a part of that collectively. So I think that's definitely one thing that is just hugely important, that all-in culture.
Um, Getting towards the end of this, but what about your own ambitions, Vic? Like, do you have any kind of further ambitions? What else do you want to do with your kind of coaching career or your netball career as it stands? Is where do you stand on that?
Uh, I'm not sure. I think I love where I'm at. I really do enjoy the kind of domestic side, domestic competition. Um, I love the competition, like the way that that's like the build up to that across pre-season, and then you're in it for a period of time, and it's week after week, and you kind of get into a routine of like evaluate and problem solve and go. Like it's I really like that. And probably from where I'm at in my career, like I'm happy with where I'm at right now. And I'm not too sure about the future. I think I try to be fair, I just want to get through the end of this week. So, I don't think too much about the future, but for me, I do like learning, I do like developing, and always open to it. So, that's probably just something that's on my radar. Like, I like working in different spaces and looking at other sports, how other sports do things. And I'm not sure where that fits with where I want to be in the future, but they're the things I do enjoy. So I'm not going to give you an answer.
That's all right.
I'm not going to give you an answer because ultimately I'm not sure where I want to be in the future, but I really do enjoy where I'm
I'm a journalist, and people used to not giving me the actual answer. And I
at
time. On that point, then, how great to be in the environment that you're in. We spoke about how Loughborough has kind of supported the Lightning franchise, but actually, I've been there quite a few times. Like the cricket setup, the NFL setup. Sometimes there could be anything going on. Do you kind of physically go out to kind of maybe soak up some stuff from those guys at different times?
Yeah, and it's actively encouraged at the
Yeah,
university. So people, coaches, directors, athletes like to get into each other's spaces. We, really fortunate. Like we have a really good like coach development, coach collaborations. It's called, which for me is a really good space to kind of get into for I think it's every 2 weeks, so it might be there's more at certain times of the year, but ultimately you get in a room with like different coaches, directors, and like half the time there'll be like problem solve questions, or there might be questions around like individual athlete plans and how people approach things in different ways, or it might be that you have something to problem solve, so you can take that into that room and go, this is what I'm thinking, what are your ideas, what do you think, how do you do things? And for me that is a great space to get into, because ultimately they're from different sports, some individual sports, some team sports, and to actually hear sometimes it's like, oh, actually they're having the same issues as me or the same
yeah.
problems as me. And then sometimes it's like, oh, like, they're problem solved in a really good way there. So it's good space to kind of get in and learn, but also get in and share as well, like what you're going through. But yeah, I think the support and the opportunity um, in that space at the university is amazing. And just getting into other sports, like watching the rugby and
Yeah.
watching the wheelchair basketball, like there's just loads on. And as you said it, like you kind of walk into or drive or walk into campus and it always seems busy. And I do like that. Do like that there's always lots going on and lots to get involved in.
And then I suppose to kind of bring it back to kind of last question, we kind of saw your dog a little bit earlier. How do you switch off? How do you kind of take yourself away from it from a bit? Like some people are all in 24/7. Lauren Palmer's a dentist for 24 hours a week, which always seems a bit mad. What do you like to do when it's kind of not netball? And is it always netball?
I'm not a dentist. um, yeah, probably just I do try and switch off. I think it can be in like all consuming. And I think there's times like when you get into that space, you can have like you start overthinking things, like you can get a bit stressed, a bit burnt out about it. So I do like to get out and take Luna for a walk,
Yeah,
in the countryside, and also just trying to kind of see friends and family. Although I don't get to see family too much because they're up in the northeast, and I try not to go up there in the season because absolutely knackered because I'm spent the whole weekend there trying to see people, and then I come back tired. So yeah, seeing them hopefully it'd be my mum and family will come down and watch a few games as well. So spend some time with friends and family and my dog is always something that I love and does help me switch off from netball.
Well, look, she's been a really good girl. We've kind of had half an eye on her the whole time as well, which is great to see. And look, we
Gonna
could
see it.
carry on chatting for ages and ages. Are we going to get her? We're going to get her, Vic. There we are. Look at her. Hi, Luna.
She looks a mess. There we go.
Listen, we could chat for ages, but you've been so generous with your time. We're really grateful to you, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.